Hello everyone, my name is Jacob King. I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia, and this is my NDE. I was raised in a very tumultuous home growing up. A lot of violence, a lot of trauma from both parents, and life was quite difficult. Grew up with a lot of health issues and a lot of depression and stuff like that. My escape was always through playing sports, as well as a deep interest in spiritual matters, psychology, things like that. As I got older, I found myself getting more and more ill mentally. Symptoms of PTSD, things that were very difficult to treat, deep depression, suicidal ideation, many suicide attempts, drug addiction, things of that nature. Things started to reach a boiling point in around 2020 here in Melbourne during the lockdowns. Things became quite unbearable. My drug and alcohol use skyrocketed, and I was a mess. Come October 2021, one night I was at home, spending my paycheck on a cocktail of chemicals to numb the pain, as I usually did. And I was at home in my room, numbing the pain, and before I knew it, I passed out. And I was instantly in a very dark space. I guess it's what's known as the void. I didn't know where I was. I didn't really know what was happening. All I knew was I started to feel this very beautiful, sweet, also very powerful kind of energy flowing through me and around me. And it was a very loving presence. And it was so loving that I felt every bone in my body, every cell just relax, and almost like every cell in my body stopped working because it didn't need to work anymore. It was like, our job is done now. And meanwhile, my mind was still working. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I just knew that I felt as if I was being deeply embraced by a huge presence. A huge figure was holding me and loving me, and it wasn't anything like the type of love I've ever experienced before here on earth. It's like when you hug someone that you haven't seen in a long time and you feel just relaxed, like you can melt in their arms. It felt like that, but much, much more powerful. And I was trying to figure it out because I started to realize that I was familiar with this energy. I had experienced it before, but I couldn't remember when. And I was scanning throughout all my life trying to see, is this somebody I can remember? Who is this? And then I remembered that this was somebody I spent time with before I was born. This was God. And when I realized that I was being held and embraced by God, I remember feeling like, yes, finally I'm back. Finally I'm back with you. I felt so complete in this love. I realized that everything I had tried to do throughout my life, every pleasure I tried to get, every goal I had, every experience I chased, it was like I was trying to get this. And now I'm back here. There's nothing left to chase anymore. There's nothing left to look for. I'm good now. I'm fine. I'm complete here. I'm satisfied. And God then took me out of that void and into another dimension. And in this other dimension, there were so many lights everywhere, all these lights. It was almost like being in space with the stars, but the stars were different because the lights inside them were dynamic and constantly changing. And there were billions of them everywhere, but they seemed conscious, alive, and the colors that were emanating from from these stars were so beautiful, so unlike anything I'd ever seen on Earth before. And what God had started to do with these lights is he started to gather them together and create, you could almost say something like fireworks, just amazing works of art. And they were forever changing and dynamic and evolving and revolving, and I was beyond astonished. It was a level of beauty that was so intense that I felt like I was going to fall apart, like I was going to disintegrate completely at what I was seeing. It was more beautiful than I could handle. And I was just amazed just at what I was seeing, and I could feel God's enjoyment in producing these works of art for me. And he was like, sort of like, just kick back and watch. I'm creating this for you. I want to show you something beautiful. And then he started to take me, and we were flying through this space, and it felt like flying, but it also felt like swimming underwater, both at the same time. And I could feel the inertia of it. And as we were flying through this space, I could see all the beauty, and I could comprehend everything at the speed of light. And the love was so intense, I felt like it was like I could barely keep myself together. It was more than I could handle. And then we arrived at this, something like a giant tower. And as we got there, I looked up. This tower was made out of the same kind of light. It was dynamic. The lights were changing color constantly. And this giant tower of light, we started to fly up the side of it, going towards the top. And the speed we were traveling at was increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing as we went towards the top. And it was so fast and so intense, and the love and everything that I was receiving was just so much overload that as we started to reach the top, I said, God, I can't handle this. It's too much. It's too much. I feel like I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die from all this love and all this beauty. I can't handle anymore. And he took me right to the edge of what I could handle. Another whisker of this love and energy, and I would have just disintegrated. And he knew exactly where my limit was, and he took me right there. And before I knew it, I was at the top of this tower. And I was there with God. God was just like an invisible ball of energy that I could feel, but I can't seem to, either I can't remember what he looked like, or he was invisible at the time. I'm not sure, but I definitely knew who that was. And we were there on the top of this tower, and we were looking out in front of us, and there were trillions of these lights all spread out, and it all looked so beautiful, and I just stared at it all, and I just took it all in. And God said, now it's time to progress through this. And I knew what he meant by that. It was the same thing that just happened as I was going up that tower of light. Now I was going to fly through all of this light. But all this light in front of me now, it was 10 times more of that than there was of this tower. I mean, it was inconceivably more. I thought, God, I nearly died coming up this tower. Like I nearly fell apart. And now you want me to fly through that? I mean, if I fly through that, I'm done. I'm never coming, like I'll surely die. And God said, yes. And I thought to myself, okay, God says I'm gonna die if I go through that, and he wants me to go through that. I said, okay, I trust you. It may seem a little bit odd from the human perspective, but being next to God, you can't doubt God. He is so powerful. He was so wise, he was so loving, and he was so calm about it. And so I just thought, alright, he knows better than I do. If he says I'll die, and he says it like there's nothing wrong with that, okay, let's do it. And he picked me up almost as if picking up a paper aeroplane, and he just threw me. And I started to go and fly through all of this space, all of this light. It was all coming past me, and the speed was increasing and increasing and increasing. And I got to that same point again where I thought, I'm going to die. If I continue, I'm going to die. And I got past that point. And what happened when I got past that point is I started to feel like my skin was being pulled off of my body, and my bones were coming off, and all these layers of identification with the human body that had remained with me here, all those layers were coming off. And as they were coming off, they felt so good. It felt like taking off a very tight shoe. And I felt all the trauma that I had carried since my childhood also came off with those layers. And one layer after another kept coming off until I got to the final layer, the final substance within me. And as we got down to that substance and I was still flying through, I thought, when I lose this final layer, this final substance, whatever it is, this final part of me, if I lose that, there's nothing left. And we kept going, and it didn't dissolve. There was this one layer that just wouldn't go. And I was confused, and I thought, what is this layer that's left of me that has not yet dissolved? What is this that still remains? And then God stopped me from flying, and then he just picked me up like picking up a grain of sand, and he showed me what he was looking at from his perspective. And he was looking at a little white light. And this little white light, this was the light of my soul. He said to me, he said, all you've been through, or you have gone through, or you will go through, all of that will fade away. This is all that remains. This is eternal. This is what you are. Never lose sight of this. Remember this. And then he rolled me like as if he rolled a marble out of his hand, and I joined the other lights. And it was like a drop of water joining the ocean, and just becoming one with the ocean, with no sense of its own identity anymore. My ego was completely erased, and I just joined that sea of light, and I became one with them. And when I became one with them, I felt like I was one with God. And it was the most beautiful, most perfect experience. The human mind cannot conceive of this. It was beyond imagination. It was like a peaceful ecstasy. And while I was there, there was no sense of time. I was just there, I was one, I was back home. After this, God picked me back up again, and he separated me from the ocean. And next to me, an image appeared. And in this image, I saw this human body right here, passed out back on earth. And he said, it's time to go back. And I was like, oof, I don't want to go back. I said, can you at least let me remember this? He said, sure. And then I thought, wait, before I go back, can I ask you some questions? He said, sure. And I said, how can I go back to being that guy again? That guy, I don't want to go back to being him, like being, depressed and drug addicted and suicidal and all of that. That guy's very different to who I feel I am now and this place, and it's too much of a contrast. And he just said, it's okay. That's okay. He didn't judge me. He didn't say you were a failure. There was nothing like that. He just said, it's okay. I said, what about people there? Like, they're not going to believe me when I tell them this about this place. I mean, how can all of this love exist and I didn't know about it? Can you spread this love with the people in my life? And I rattled off some names, and he said to me, well, that's what you're there for. And I said, I'm sorry, but how can I give them all this love that I'm experiencing now? There's no way that I can give them that love. And he said, just ask me to help you. Ask me to be an outlet for this love. And I was very intrigued by the wording he used there, because he clearly said outlet, meaning I didn't have to try to produce this love. I just had to let my ego step aside so that love could flow through me. And I said, okay, I will. But it seems so easy from up here. While we're on earth, it's so difficult. Things are so much more confusing. It doesn't really make sense on earth. And he said, I am you. And I was like, oh, I had trouble accepting that. God was so big and so powerful and so loving. How can you say you are me? I am you. I couldn't accept it. And then he took a moment, and out of the center of my forehead came out this giant eye, giant golden eye, coming out of my forehead and looking back at me. And he said, I am viewing your life through you, as you. We are one. And then he sent me back. It was very difficult to return after that experience. Not just because the vibration of Earth is so different to the vibration of this place I was in, but processing all of that was a monumental task. Now, the first thing that I noticed upon returning was things didn't quite look the same on Earth. It kind of felt like I was in a dream or a fake place. Earth is an illusion. It really is an illusion. And I noticed that I was no longer seeing with my eyes. I felt like I was seeing through my eyes. My eyes just felt like windows to something deeper within me. And I can only assume that this is what it was like when my third eye was opened. It was very unique. I started viewing life very differently. I was no longer interested in the same ego pursuits. When somebody would disrespect me, I no longer got angry. I no longer felt like I needed to fight for my reputation and things like that. That stuff didn't interest me anymore. I still have had a lot of problems. I still had all the traumas I had from when I was young. I still, would lose my temper and get agitated sometimes, but I wasn't pursuing the same things anymore. And I started to undergo my healing process. I started to die to the world. I started to see the futility in using drugs and alcohol and things like this that were never going to scratch the itch down here. The only thing that was going to scratch the itch was spending time with God, connecting with that loving presence that I felt, that loving presence that I now know is everywhere here on earth. You don't feel it the same way here, it's very watered down, but God's love is everywhere, and we can feel it if we learn how to tune in. I know that you don't have to have an NDE to tune into God's love. And everything just started to unravel for me. In 2022, that was the year of me dying, basically. I had the NDE in the end of 2021. 2022 was me undergoing that same process of dissolving the unnecessary layers that I had been carrying within me, and learning how to live in the only way that will truly satisfy my soul. Now I walk around, I have my times of forgetfulness, but for the most part I remember who I am now, and I feel like I'm in a spiritual state of flow. And when I do the wrong thing, I'm instantly out of that state of flow. And that's very painful for me. And all the things that I do that take me out of the state of flow, I realize these are the things that most religions call sin. When I sin, I'm no longer in the flow state. And when I'm not in the flow state, I'm back inside my very damaged ego. That's why it's become quite effortless for me to drop the majority of the sinful activities that I used to partake in. It's very easy for me to be sober now. It's very easy for me to not get lost in lustful fantasies and ambitious desires of chasing money and power and things like that. None of that does it for me anymore. And so my life changed ever since that night. I still have a lot of work to do to heal from my very traumatic childhood and to get rid of some of those burdens that are still on my shoulders. I never thought I could heal from it, and the healing has been coming quite rapidly. And God has put people in my life to assist me on the journey. And I no longer have to stress and worry about it anymore. God takes care of me just like He takes care of you, just like He takes care of all of us. God is one with me, God is one with you, God is one with all of us. I've been very blessed to have this experience, and I hope that sharing this experience can help you on your journey. And always remember that God is with us. He is one with all of us, and His love is everywhere if you learn how to tune in. Take care.